Hi everyone, I'm Sean, and today I'm going to be reacting to one-star reviews of my favorite books. I am pretty notorious for disliking books, so I thought this would be a pretty fun video. So first, let's do Tim O'Brien, The Things They Carried. That was kind of funny. I was just reading a review and I was like, what is this person talking about? Like they're talking, like I thought this was a children's story and I was like, it's about the Vietnam War. But I was reading reviews for a different book. Whoops. Here's one that says, I got nearly halfway and then read a page of the worst, most sickening animal cruelty I've ever encountered. One whole long paragraph that I didn't finish. I find it a little bit funny that this person is focused on this treatment of this animal while the book is about people killing people. Like, that doesn't bother you? Maybe that's something you should think about. This reviewer goes on to say, if this had been written as a novel, I would have been more than willing to read to the end. It wasn't especially well written. It was a mostly disjointed piece of often short paragraphs, animal cruelty being an exception apparently, and there wasn't any war to it. None. It is a hodgepodge of stories, some true, some maybe not, some may be exaggerated, some may not be telling the full story, like keeping some of the graphic details out. And that's what I like about the book, is you don't know exactly what's true, what's not, but it all feels true, and to me it all feels real, and that was what I liked about the book. Here's one. I read this for school, but that's not the only reason I hated it. I hated the writing, I hated the people, it was just, when will schools decide to start teaching things that involve good books? First off, this person should learn to use correct capitalization. I don't know if that's a problem of this student or their school. I do like that their school wanted to require this book because I loved it. My school wanted me to read crap books that I don't even remember today what they were called. Like, they were so unimportant, so boring. But your school wanted you to read The Things They Carried? That is pretty sweet. This book gets 1 star because it is a story that need telling. Other than that, I hated this stupid book. Also, my English teacher got mad at me because I couldn't understand the incredibly complex understanding of truth or whatever moral lessons I was supposed to take from this. In conclusion, I would kick this book off the app list island without a second thought. Why can't schools teach punctuation? I'll be honest, I absolutely loathed everything to do with this book. I'm still shocked that my high school is making kids read this. There's a reason it's marketed as adult fiction. Well, first off, I'm glad to see you can actually use punctuation. First, the reading level is about 4th grade in my opinion, but the content level definitely does not match that. As I've said, it's an adult book. A book can have any reading level. It doesn't have to be like college level writing to be written for adults. It could be written simply, as this book is, and that's what I like about it. It doesn't make you strain to read it. It's really easy to read. Second, the language was atrocious. It seemed like every 2 pages I had to mentally delete profanities from my brain. I'm almost as mad at my school for making me read this as I am at the author for writing this. What happened to classic literature? Well, if this person doesn't like this book, I wonder what they'll think when they get to Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. If you don't like profanity, but you want to read more classical literature, you're going to be in for a surprise. The person goes on. Fourth, the themes of this book were awful. I know it's a war book, but it seemed as though there was no morality whatsoever. I think that's kind of the point, is there is no right or wrong in this. It's a story about war where people are killing others, where they're killing strangers, and these are just regular people who had regular lives, and all of a sudden they're enlisted and forced to fight this war, which they may not have even supported, and kill people who they may have had no issues with whatsoever because of politics. And that is the morality of it, is it's a war. And all you really do is you live or you die. Frankly, I don't like books where the war is glorified and it's good guys versus bad guys, and good will triumph in the end. To me, all wars are terrible and there's no honor in fighting them. The things they carried, there's a space there, was not that interesting to me. O'Brien was confusing at times. The hardest thing for me to grasp was the concept of real or true stories. So many people have mentioned that in reviews. They don't know what's true or what's not, or that O'Brien mixes up truth and fiction. And why are people making such a big deal out of that? I mean, if you enjoy the book, what's it matter what's true or what's not? Why does it matter knowing what's true or what's not? Just listen to the story and yeah, but I don't know. Okay, off to Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Here's another review. What are the biggest problems, you ask? Well, for one thing, it's virtually impossible to tell one character from another. It's really easy to tell them apart because Grant is really the one who is interested in the dinosaur bones. And then Ellie, is that her name? She is the one I think more interested in plants. And then Malcolm is the one interested in chaos theory. They are all very different. They are all very different fields of study and different knowledge. So to me, they're incredibly easy to keep separate. And that's what I like about Jurassic Park, is because since the characters all know different things, they have to explain some of these things to other characters so that the readers can understand the plot. And it's not written in a way that makes you feel stupid, because these people are all specialists in their own field. So they're explaining these things that these other characters do not really know, and that helps let the readers know what's going on. So I think it was a very good way for Crichton to give plot to readers. And let's not talk about the fact that Crichton never met a climactic moment that he could not ruin with a long-winded scientific explanation. That's the best thing about Crichton. So many scenes where the tensions are high, dinosaurs are stomping around, drooling venomous saliva, snarling and snapping. And hey there, now it's a great time to explain chaos theory in depth. Again, that's what Crichton is good at. This was the book that made Michael Crichton famous? This steaming pile of crap? What a disappointment. So many of the characters were so annoying, especially the kid Lex. I kept hoping she would get eaten by a velociraptor so I wouldn't have to deal with her whining anymore. I think I only cared about 2 or 3 of the characters, and even they didn't rouse very strong feelings in me. If you're going to read Michael Crichton, go with Airframe. It's vastly more entertaining, topical, and just a better book in general. I actually had to check to make sure I didn't write this. I did find Lex, the kid, annoying, very annoying. There's parts where they're trying to hide from the dinosaurs, and of course she just sneezes, and then she yells, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to," when they're trying to hide from the dinosaurs. That was super annoying, and I just wanted to slap the kid. But I agree with this person about that. If you're going to read Michael Crichton, go with Airframe. Again, I don't agree so much. I agree that my Airframe was a great book, and I highly recommend it. But I also did like Jurassic Park. T-Rexes didn't live in the Jurassic. They lived during the Cretaceous period. And also there were paleontologists are the most incompetent idiots ever. It's very clearly stated in the book, I think, that they are not from the Jurassic period. But it would be pretty weird calling the book Cretaceous Park. I can't even begin to give a helpful review. I tore this book in half when I finished it in a fit of rage. No regrets. Hated it. If you can tear a book in half, you must have some impressive strength. It's not often I say this, but this was awful compared to the movie. The characters are one-dimensional and stale. Ian Malcolm will not shut up about chaos theory, and his science is terrible. And the book just dragged on forever. Compare this to the complexities the characters in the movie, blah, 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 blah. There is actually something I liked more about the characters in the books. For instance, in the movie, Grant does not like children, but in the book, he actually loves children. And the reason is because kids love dinosaurs. So he relates with them for that. And I thought that was a great character point, that kids like dinosaurs, he likes dinosaurs, so naturally he would get along well with kids. I get what Spielberg was going for. He wanted to have this character development of Grant going from not liking kids to being really protective of the kids. And I get that, but still, the character in the book made more sense. I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan when it comes to the movies, but the book was bogged down in too many details, and not the enjoyable details like scenery and such, but instead in in-depth descriptions of the science behind it. I really didn't like it. This is why I think books and movies are so different. In movies, you want to see the dinosaurs because it's very cinematic. But in books, I think what matters more is the plot, the descriptions behind it. And this person talks about descriptions as in terms of scenery. And I don't really like that in books where it's just pages talking about plants or trees or whatever that doesn't really matter because you could just fill it in yourself. What matters is, I think, description that is relevant to the plot. In this case, a story about dinosaurs being cloned and brought back to life, the description would be about how that works. And that's what Crichton does. This one just says, see the film. Yeah, see the film. It's great. It's a masterpiece. It's a work of art. Also, read the book. It's great. Okay, next is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Warning, buttload of sarcasm incoming. Oh yes, that's just brilliant. Let's tell a story in a second-hand past tense. That'll get us right into the action. And I love how this second-hand storyteller is able to relate in very fine detail dialogue exchanges between the monster and people he met years ago via a third-person account from a dying Dr. Frankenstein. I mean, honestly, what were you thinking, Mary? It's called, I think, an epistolary writing style. A lot of books in that time were written that way. So, deal with it. This has to be the most tedious thing I have ever read in my life. Yeah, the book is a little bit dry, wordy, whatever. It's a little bit slow, and the epistolary style is kind of difficult to get into, but do try to give it a chance. I was real kind of iffy about the book at least halfway through reading it. I wasn't quite to the point of giving up, but I was really undecided about the book. But when I finished it, I realized it was one of the great books of all time. So be patient with it. I found that when it comes to classic horror lit, people are in one of two camps. Dracula or Frankenstein. For me, it's Dracula. Well, for me, it's obviously Frankenstein. I love Frankenstein. It's one of my favorite books ever. Dracula, I did not like. Check out my drunk book review of it. This one says, I hate this book, and I've been forced by high school to read it twice and college to read it once. Yeah, it's well written. Yeah, it's a classic, blah, blah. No. This is just a book about the worst parent ever. Victor goes and creates his monster, and then once he's finished decides, oh no, it's too ugly and scary, and runs off. Shut up, Victor. No one cares about your stupid, delicate sensibilities. You made a child because blah, blah, blah. It goes on. I get what this person is saying, but I don't think they're really getting the point. Yes, the doctor is irresponsible, but that's pretty much the point of the story. And the monster is not really inherently evil. It's just this doctor made this creature, brought this creature back to life, and just it all goes bad. And the doctor was not prepared for it. And that's kind of the story. And the monster is not this pure evil guy. The more pure evil was the doctor playing around with all of this. This one's actually really funny. An annoying scientist and an ugly tall man fight over who is more depressed. DNF at about 50%, though I am not sure how much I was absorbing while listening. I really dislike what I listened to of this book. No appeal for me, and I could not get into it. I did try and restart it 3 times, but it would not stick. Well, that's unfortunate. I wish you would have liked it more. I understand giving up on it, but I wish people would be patient with this book. I wanted to like it. There was so much potential to the premise, but the story fell flat for me. There were just too many of those moments where I said, okay, now it's going to get good, only to find each new turn fizzled out for me and left me feeling unsatisfied. And great googly moogly, how many flippin' times can Mary Shelley use the word countenance? I find it funny that I didn't remember picking up on that because I usually notice repeated words. What unreadable dreck. Tedious, annoying, and most of the story is pointlessly stretched. I have to admit that in the last 40 pages I just skimmed. I am glad to have read this, but I can't imagine ever rereading this. First of all, the use of language, pretty but unnecessary. The main POV character is smart enough to bring about life, but otherwise is a total idiot. I could go on, but I won't. Well, that's kind of the point. The doctor is not this real wise guy. He is smart enough to do this experiment, but he doesn't really stop to think should he, or the ramifications of it, or accepting responsibility for it. That is what the story is about. I've never met such a miserable, self-centered, and morbidly depressed character in all my reading life. Victor Frankenstein is an unlikable character, and I wasn't blah 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 blah. I'm not sure you're really supposed to like him. He's not meant to be the good guy. He's a madman. I was going to DNF this, but my boyfriend convinced me to continue, saying no matter how terrible it seemed, I could at least then add it to my 2015 reading challenge if I finished it. So I did, and it was possibly the worst thing I have ever read in my life. But hey, onwards and upwards, right? If your boyfriend recommended you read Frankenstein and you didn't like it, I would hope that your boyfriend found someone more deserving of him. I expected so much more of this. I honestly thought this was going to be sinister and thrilling, but nope. I really had to force myself to finish this one. It's probably due to the writing style that was typical for books of that age. Yeah, the writing style was difficult. It's not something you would read today. Try to be patient with it, please. Okay, last, let's do The Hunt for Red October by Tom Clancy, and this is a signed copy, which I love. Could not finish it. I felt like I was reading a submarine operations manual. What's wrong with that? This effkin sucked. Well, it's hard to argue with that reasoning. This was incredibly disappointing. When computers start writing books, they will read like this. If you want to read a truly great submarine story, try Das Boot, Hunt for Red October, Wastebin. Well, thanks for that. I'll give Das Boot a try. I didn't know there was a book about it. You have to be in the Navy to understand this gibberish. I'm not in the Navy, and I'm not naval, and I understood it fine. This one's kind of funny. Plotline courtesy of popular mechanics. There are about 100 named characters, and most of them are two-fisted Russian variety that makes Western eyeballs goggle. Unfortunately, the Red October's Lithuanian captain has a last name that's initially unpronounceable, Marco Ramius. What's hard about that, Marco Ramius? It can be off-putting to wonder how to pronounce the protagonist's name for 400 to 500 pages. If you can't pronounce their name, just make up your own. So if it's Marco Ramius, just call him Mark Rambo, and fine. That's all you need to think of when you read the book. The other Russian characters have equally daunting names. Well, I don't think Tom Clancy could have named his Russian characters Joe Smith. Also, do not expect any personal growth or human behavior from these characters. Not every book needs to have character development. Some characters are the same at the beginning as at the end of the story. That's fine. But that is not the case with this book. In this book, the main character does not like to fly. He lectures a flight attendant about something called turbulence, which apparently this flight attendant has never heard of, and at the end of the book, he is able to sleep on a plane. There is your character development. I read this for a book club and hated it. Too many characters. Well, wait till you get to War and Peace. If it's Ronald Reagan's favorite book, then it has to be good, right? Obvious sarcasm. Well, at least Reagan could read, unlike the presidents that we have now who just look at picture books. This book, and other Clancy I've tried to read, was too technical for me. I could not care less about how a submarine is put together or why, and I got lost in all the details after a few pages. That's a fair enough point. Clancy is a very technical writer, but I enjoyed it, and I never really felt lost reading this book. I felt like I was in the submarine and knew what these characters knew as well. So I really enjoyed it. I wanted to like this book, and I had such high hopes, but I just couldn't get into it, and I tried and tried. Reasons. 1. Entirely male cast and crew. 2. Unrelatable characters. 3. Way too much submarine and sonar talk. I just don't care. I want to be entertained, and this was not it. Didn't finish this book, and I'm going to stop trying. I'm sorry a book about a submarine had too much talk about submarines for you. I am not interested in submarines at all, nor do I understand them. Blah, blah, blah. Since I am not, I did not like it at all. Well, if you don't like submarines, why are you picking a book about submarines? Got about halfway through listening to it while I commute. Too much technical detail. If you're trying to follow along with this really technical book while you're driving, when you should be focused on other things, maybe you shouldn't be reading or listening to a really technical book. Go with something simple. DNF. I was supposed to read this whole thing for class, and even that added pressure couldn't force me to complete this book. I stopped before 400 pages. Military political thrillers are not my thing. But, this is also bad. I don't even know where to go with that. This and Stephen King's Pet Sematary were the first two books I read in English sometime in middle school. And given how mind-numbingly boring I found this one, it is a wonder I've kept reading anything in English at all. I'm right there with you. I don't know why I read anything in English either. It's just because that's the only language I can read anything in. It's an infernal, terrible language. And if the first books you ever read in English were Tom Clancy and Stephen King, I apologize. Those are not really good books to begin learning English with. This one's kind of funny. I give it 1 star for good spelling. Another one. If you're reading a Clancy book, be prepared for a long, drawn-out affair. Why else would one read a Tom Clancy book? I generally enjoy Clancy's work. I just don't like submarines. I don't like movies about them, and I don't like books about them. Well, okay, Sam, I am. Very dull, up to page 92, and purposefully left it on the train. Well, that's actually a good thing. You blessed someone on the train with this great book, so they could read it now. Reading this book felt more like studying for an exam than living in the world of controversy and complex characters. Well, if you lived in this world of naval characters, that is probably what their life is like, studying for an exam. They have to know all this technical detail. That is what their work is about, so that is what the book is about. They need to understand it, so the reader needs to understand it too. That is why the book is technical. Another kind of funny one. The most exciting thing that happened in this book was one of the officers commenting on the other officer eating an egg sandwich. And that is it for this video. So give a like if you want to see another video like this, and remember to click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!